Well, here's the question to start us off today. What happens when a community decides a major economic project just isn't worth the cost? Hello, everyone. I'm Uriah Kaiser, founder and publisher of Potomac Local News, and you are watching PLN on YouTube. Thank you for being here with us today on this Thursday, December 11th, 2025. Well, the debate is unfolding in Fredericksburg, where the Planning Commission last night just voted 7-0 to reject the proposed 1,500 Gateway Data Center project. It's a project that would have brought more than 2 million square feet of data center buildings, a new electrical substation, and major transmission infrastructure to the city's western gateway at I-95 and Route 3. Today, we're breaking down what's at stake, what residents said, and why the project failed again at the Planning Commission level, despite revisions, incentives, and months of back and forth with city officials. Before we get to our guest today, here's a quick background. The 1,500 Gateway proposal was a request to rezone more than 83 acres of forested land for industrial center use. The site sits between Plank Road, it's Route 3, Cowan Boulevard, and Mahone Street, right next to several neighborhoods, including Great Oaks, Hills of Snowden, and the Preserve at Smith Run. The developer asked to raise building heights to 90 feet, build a new Dominion Energy substation, and construct a 4-lane extension of Gateway Boulevard. Supporters pointed to more than $50 million a year in projected tax revenue from the project. But residents raised red flags about water use, noise, air quality, tree loss, transmission lines, and a process they felt broke earlier promises about keeping data centers inside the technology overlay district. That's over near the FredNat Stadium and not near homes. After hours of testimony, the Planning Commission agreed, ruling both the rezoning and the substation inconsistent with the city's comprehensive plan. So how did this project get here, and why did it fail? And what does this decision mean for Fredericksburg's future? To help us sort through the politics, the planning, and the public reaction, we're joined by someone who has watched this issue closely over the years, from both inside city government and from outside as a commentator. Matt Kelly is a former Fredericksburg City Councilman and a contributor to the Inform Fredericksburg Facebook page, where he regularly breaks down local policy and land use decisions. Matt, thanks for being here today.
Oh, loved being here. Thank you for having me. I'm just going to get you a little bit more light. There we go.
Looking good, sir. They're considered. We got 10 people here on the live stream. Thank you all for joining us here. Please drop your comment if you have a question about this project here in Fredericksburg. We'd love to hear from you. Are you concerned about the proliferation of data centers in our region in Northern Virginia, and especially here in the Fredericksburg area? Let us know. Did you attend the Planning Commission? Did you watch online? And what do you think about the prospect of another yet more data in our region? Well, Matt, you served on city council, and we've seen some major land use applications come and go. So from your perspective, why did this particular project face such steep resistance even after the developers revised it?
Well, first off, as you pointed out, there were some revisions made, but not a sufficient amount of revisions to really change the project from what was originally submitted and heard by the Planning Commission back in July. I think what we're seeing, and we're seeing this in a lot of areas, that while we understand the benefits of data centers from a financial standpoint, there are trade-offs, and the community is kind of determined that the trade-offs in this case do not make this a project that they want to see in Fredericksburg. As you noted in the opening, the Fredericksburg City Council established a technology overlay district in Celebrate, Virginia, and said, this is where we're going to put data centers. And then all of a sudden, and actually not all of a sudden, this current project was kind of going concurrently with the original TOD. This is not something that came out afterwards. It's been around for a while. It was just thought that, okay, we got the TOD now, this will go away, and obviously it didn't. One of the biggest questions we had in Inform Fredericksburg, and we covered this on our piece that we posted recently, was why is this happening? If you council said that this was going to, the TOD, the Technology Overlay District, was going to be the place for data centers, why are you not saying to the public, okay, we've got the TOD. We will not move forward on this particular project.
Now, I do want to talk about that technology overlay district because it was developed with the quickness, as the kids say. It was developed really quickly. But before we get to that, I want to set up where this gateway project is, because the project, and I think it's clear, we should make clear at the outset that though the Planning Commission voted to deny the project unanimously, the project still goes now to the city council, which has the final say on this project. And where this project sits, it's a tract of land called the Hilton Tract. And I'll let you tell us and me as well how it got its name and what it was and why we have it, and why it is one of the last few untouched pieces of property in the city of Fredericksburg. But the land sits, as I noted in the open, it's between Route 3, Plank Road, and Cowan Boulevard. And so if
butts up against 95.
Exactly. It's abutting the 95. And so if you are getting on 95 at Route 3, if you're getting on, say, 95 North and you're turning, from Route 3 East to 95 North, that piece of land is right there as you get on. It is to your right as you get on the highway.
That is correct. Yeah.
So the Hilton Tract, tell us more about the Hilton Tract and why it is one of the last remaining untouched pieces of property in the city.
One, it's one of the largest. It's Hilton is the family that owns the tract and has owned the tract for quite a while. And again, as was pointed out last night at the Planning Commission meeting, this has been a piece of land that the city has always wanted to see as a major economic development, primarily economic development type of project. If you remember correctly, we were trying to get the Veterans Hospital to go there. Then we got a mixed use project and none of those came to fruition. And this is the third attempt to bring a project to that tract.
And was it supposed to be a medical facility at one point? Was it going to be?
We zoned it PDMC, Planned District Medical Complex, for if you remember correctly, the U.S. Veterans Administration was going to set up a medical facility in the region, and we were trying to secure that along with Spotsylvania and everybody else in the region.
That's right. And eventually that project went to Spotsylvania County. Yeah.
So then we've kind of, it then morphed into a very large residential project, I think 400 plus unit residential project with a small commercial component, and that kind of hung around for a while. And then the big push for data centers came down the pike, and the next thing you know, we have the data center project we're looking at now.
Yeah, if you're just listening and you're learning exactly what the Hilton Tract was, and if you've never even thought as you drove past on 95 or drove past on Route 3 or Cowan Boulevard about that open area of land there, comment here. Let us know that you're just learning about this project or that piece of property in the city, because there has been a lot of talk about what to do with this piece of property over the years. So please comment, and of course subscribe to our YouTube page if you're watching this and you value what we're talking about and you want more local news and more local discussions like this. We invite you to subscribe to our YouTube page as you're watching this. So thank you so much for joining us on YouTube and on Facebook today. So we talked about the where this is, but earlier this year, in January and the February timeframe, is when we started covering that technology overlay district in earnest. That it sort of came up and out of essentially overnight, and we were going to develop, or at least the city was, guidelines and sort of instructions on where these data centers could go, where they could be located, and they decided that area was going to include the Celebrate Virginia area over by the Fredericksburg National Stadium. And the decision was made very quickly. We started talking about it in January, and I believe by March it was all hammered out and done. So just what do you recall about that discussion there?
Well, let's step back a little bit farther than that. We actually did a post on this in the very beginning on Inform Fredericksburg. There were a series of 2-by-2 meetings of council members and staff going to look at data centers in Northern Virginia and Prince William County back in February of the prior year. And so the discussion within the council and within city staff occurred well before it was made public, I believe, late November, early December, when the mayor announced, hey, we're looking at a data center. We're going to look at establishing a technology overlay district, and we've got to do it real fast because the property owner wants this done very quickly, which was not quite correct. And so, you know, that was one of the biggest issues for a lot of in the public was you've had almost a year to have a discussion with the citizens of Fredericksburg about what data centers the pros and cons of data centers. What are the pros? What are the cons? How are we going to deal with the cons, or how can we do? That could have been a conversation that went on 8 or 9 months to prepare the public for the project and the TOD coming forward, but they didn't do it. They remained silent. And I think I know that's one of the key issues that a lot of people had, is this was all done behind closed doors.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, we have seen the proliferation. Thank you. My mic was muted. We have seen the proliferation of data centers across Northern Virginia, right? And just as nearby as Stafford County and Spotsylvania and so on and so forth. So we knew this was coming. And if you read local news or listen to people talk, it's almost, you know, the data center topic is, you can't escape it. And so it's sort of in your face. Why did Fredericksburg think that it could be the, you know, maybe not the lone holdout or the data center free bastion? I don't think that was the case here, but not addressing the elephant in the room. Why do you think that happened?
I think you need to step back a little bit here and remember, we're a city. Even up to this point, if you read most articles on data centers, the trend was get away from built up areas, go to rural areas. What amazed me when we set up the TOD, again, you've had numerous stories about communities getting very upset about data centers a few hundred yards away. And here we are setting a limit of 250 feet from a data center. So, you know, part of this was a fact of the industry is looking to go away from residential areas. And there were good reasons for that. The noise, you know, being one. Of the particular ones, issues with the transmission lines. It looked like we were going in that direction. And then all of a sudden, you know, boom, here we are looking at trying to basically, in the case of the TOD, shoehorn a project on a very limited area of land at Celebrate, Virginia. And by the way, their land for the Penzance project that we're looking at now is even significantly smaller. The TOD says we need a minimum of 150 acres. The Hilton track and they're building on is 83.
Interesting.
So that's another, you know, an issue of just the general size and proximity to other neighborhoods.
And the technology overlay district in the Celebrate Virginia, give us some history on that. Was that was originally slated for? Was it residential? Was it mixed use and just never?
That goes way back. Originally, it was going to be. Going back to, 1990s, was going to be in that time frame a residential development. Then, if you remember correctly, the Silvers came up with this concept of a tourism campus, and we went through the tourism campus routine. And then over time, you just started seeing regular standard commercial development that you saw. You know, Wegmans came.
Right.
And that kind of became an anchor for a lot of the commercial development that occurred around it. Then we did the negotiations and got the baseball stadium.
Yeah, and when I started covering local news at the Stafford County Sun, which is a former weekly newspaper that has been gone for years, that Kalahari was actually looking at that area to build
Kalahari
a water park.
That was where the water park was originally. They really wanted to build it.
Yeah, and so that was just, we've seen this so much talk about what to do with this property, and obviously this is where the data centers, according to the technology overlay district that was approved by City Council earlier in 2025, that's where they should go. It's also important to note that the Celebrate Virginia portion north, I guess, is in Stafford County, and that was developed, and now we're talking about this is a separate topic together, but since we're on the topic in that general neighborhood, we're talking about putting a bridge between Stafford County and Celebrate Virginia South in Fredericksburg to bridge. It's I forget the name of the street, but it's
basically bring the local traffic on a local traffic route between and Stafford in the city and South.
Yeah, and it's a developed gateway on the Fredericksburg city side. It's a boulevard with median in the middle and street lights. And I remember years ago driving. I think my wife was at Wegmans and they were doing some shopping, and I'm going to take a drive. It's late. It was like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. It was dark, and I drove down the boulevard, and it ends. It stops. I'm like,
yeah,
this doesn't make any sense. It just it stops in the middle of nowhere.
Well, also remember, if we're going to add to the list of projects, don't forget the Slavery Museum that was supposed to go there.
That was Doug Wilder's thing.
Yes,
former governor.
You had a lot of things, but it's once kind of Wegmans came in, it just started, becoming more and more of a commercial site, developing on the Fall Hill Avenue side. And then, of course, we finally got the baseball stadium situation squared away.
Yeah.
And then even in the meantime, you now have, a number of apartment and condo projects that are back there too. And of course, eventually we also approved the Neon project, which is which Larry Silver gave up to bring data centers. And basically what happened there is the city went to Mr. Silver and said, hey, would you please give up Neon and let us put a data center there? So, that the impetus for that move did not come from Silver companies, that came from the city.
And the Silver companies, of course, if you're not familiar, they are the developers of Central Park, which is the city's largest shopping center and home to many places. You probably, if you live in or don't live in Fredericksburg, if you shop in Fredericksburg, you likely shop within Central Park there. And the Silvers owned that, I believe, opened that in 1995. Well, going back to this project here that was talked about at the Planning Commission last night, a lot of residents pointed to concerns about water usage, transmission lines, promises made during the creation of that technology overlay district you've referenced so much. Which one of these issues do you think carried the most weight with the Planning Commission, which again voted 7-0 to deny this application?
I think there's a myriad of factors. It's not just one. The key one is there's a lack of information. It was brought up, they talk about, we found this new route for the transmission line. We're not going to, we acknowledge that it's problematic to have a transmission line going near a school with children. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up with a transmission line that's going to go next to 3 neighborhoods. That made a lot of sense.
Get there.
There were questions of, you need 100-foot easement for the power lines. Where exactly along Callan Boulevard is that going to go? Who owns the land? How's it going to be acquired? A lot of factors with that. The water issue has been a big one, and it's been a little mystifying to me in that this is another factor we'll need to discuss, when you start looking at the technology of data centers, we're starting to move away from the water cooling systems. In fact, Dan Shoemate's company, Shoemate Engineering, and I think Loudon, who we've had down here to talk about data centers, is now patenting a new cooling system using less water and less electricity. So the technology is moving forward. And one of the points made last night, why are we talking about old technology? Things are moving quickly on the technology front. And with that, the other issue is, we kept talking about this, or staff and the developer obviously kept on presenting this as a single project. You can't look at it as a single project. We've got a data center being built, which is going to require water. At Celebrate Virginia, we have this one. We're still using the Rappahannock for the water source. Who else is using the Rappahannock as the water source? Stafford and Spotsylvania. So, one of the questions last night was, Okay, Sid, the city right now is talking to Stack Infrastructure, who is going to build a data center supposedly at Celebrate, Virginia, about water usage. So, Planning Commission, have you been briefed on what the requirements are going to be for that project? So you can basically look at these two projects, because now the amount of information that are being provided to any jurisdiction by the data center industry on water is minimal. There's just, we might need this much money. We might need that much. If you look at the current project at Hilton Tract, when they first put out documents, they were going to use millions of gallons of water. Then the second version came and it was hundreds of thousands of gallons of water. The latest version was, we don't know, we'll figure it out later. So you're kind of wondering what the heck is going on here. And then, of course, just this week, Caroline County got their approval to start drawing 9 million gallons a day out of the Rappahannock River.
Yeah.
And we don't have the infrastructure to support these two projects.
It's interesting you bring up that water, because when the groundbreaking ceremony this past late summer, early fall for a new water treatment facility, one of the questions that I asked city officials is, are you confident that this new facility will be able to meet the demand placed on the data centers that you have approved just so far? And
they don't know. I mean, they're telling
that was
us
the answer. That was the answer we got. We don't really know.
We don't know yet. Yeah. And here we are making decisions on whether we should or should not build these, and we don't have the information. The bottom line is this: if you look at a standard data center that we are aware of that's currently operating, and you take the current applicant for the Hilton Tract at his word that we want to use non-potable water or wastewater, then we can't do it, because we can't support both of them, because we're only going to create 6 million gallons a day, and that's not going to be sufficient for both these facilities.
Yeah. Tell me, what do you think, guys, if you're listening? Are data centers right for Fredericksburg? Are they right for where you are? If you're listening in county or Stafford County, Spotsylvania County, what do you think about the proliferation of data centers? If you're listening somewhere else, elsewhere in Virginia, perhaps down Virginia Beach or Southwest, where many have said, hey, this is a wide open area, especially in Southwest Virginia, bring data centers here. Why, if Northern Virginia doesn't want data centers in crowded Northern Virginia, why not bring them down here? What do you think? Comment below. Let us know. What do you think about the proliferation of these data centers? And as we keep covering them, more people, Matt, start paying more attention, it seems. And from what I understand, especially here in Fredericksburg, it seems like more people are sort of galvanized. They're aware. I think there are citizen groups now sort of putting out the rallying cry to make sure that people at least have the information about the projects and when these public meetings are. How important is it for residents to know what's going on and to get involved in these land use projects?
I think it's very important. What has always kind of amazed me is the impact of local officials and government at the local level has a much greater impact on your life in a lot of cases than does the state and the feds. I know in this day and age that people question that, but frankly, it's educating your children, water, sewer, your quality of life, a lot of different things. And it's also a level of government where you as the citizen can have the most impact. And to your point, and I think this has been a self-inflicted wound on the city, in that they have been so closed-mouthed about this project and other projects that groups have started to galvanize and come together and saying, hey, the city's not going to do it, so we're going to take on that role. Classic example is, the council started talking about data centers over 2 years ago. Some will say they started the conversation in 2018 and 2019 when I was on council, and we can talk about that if you want to. But going forward, they have not done anything to really inform the public about these projects. So what's happened? The Neighborhood Coalition, which started putting out information. Inform Fredericksburg, we partnered up with the Sierra Club and Friends of the Rappahannock to put on forums. And what's interesting about the forums is that there was a complaint with the first forum that FOR and the Sierra Club did by a number of people I know who said, oh, this was so biased. It was totally anti-data center. This is terrible. So we said, hey, if we can have a panel that has both sides at the table, would you participate? And they said, that would be great. And we went to the Sierra Club and we said, hey, let's have a panel discussion, but we'll have people who support data centers or data center experts and those people who have issues with it, and let them go at it. Oh, yeah, we'll do it. And then we went back to every one of the local people who are dealing with data centers and said, okay, we're going to do this. Can you serve on the panel? And the answer was no. We couldn't get anybody to serve on the panel. We tried to get a local news organization involved, and they said, no, we're going to put our own on, because you're going to have the Sierra Club. It's going to be biased and everything else like that. And they hosted a data center forum with only the data center industry at the table. So it's just been amazing. And that's another point. As you're aware, journalism right now, especially in our region, has taken a huge hit. The coverage on the city is, I'll say, minimal at best. At one hand, there's the view that the city's not the most important, it's the counties. They're the bigger, there's where the market is. Then we have an issue of people covering the city who don't have a lot of background in it, and they're just not covering the issues.
Yeah.
So we have to step up and do it.
Yeah, and we have seen, whether you're in Fairfax County, I mean, it's weird. Fairfax County is one of the nation's largest news deserts, and I should say local news deserts. And people think Washington D.C., how could that anywhere near Washington D.C. be a news desert? That's where news is made, but it's local news. It's the dearth of local news that is missing. And as we continue to see newspapers shrink and ultimately close, like we saw in Prince William County, and we're seeing the shrink going on in Fredericksburg with the Freelance Star, and we've seen some local outlets pop up, much like Potomac Local, which popped up 15 years ago, which I founded to cover local news within the area. It's not like it used to be when you had a room full of journalists covering certain beats, whether that be city council or courts or crime. And so it is a new day, but I do want to talk to you about your Informed Fredericksburg. And I have been following you on Facebook, and I do appreciate the information that you are putting out there. And it looks like your most recent piece, you referenced Councilor Will McIntosh, who took some issue with some of the questions that you asked. And he said, if you want to have a real honest discussion about Fredericksburg and the city, please reach out directly to me via email. And I'll tell you, I think that's interesting, because I too have invited Councilor Will McIntosh on this program to have a discussion just like this. And I got a similar response to, hey, I don't really know you all that well. Maybe if you're in the city someday, we can do coffee, but really not interested. So it doesn't look like, to your point about people wanting to have an open panel discussion, it doesn't look like people want to have an open discussion about this stuff.
The interesting thing about going back to the Hilton project is, to date, except for that first time that Councilor McIntosh said, I don't support this project, and be frankly with what his position is, you have not had a council member make a public statement about what they think about that project. Not one. And every time you ask the questions, again, to your point, we're not going to answer those questions. Again, the questions, there's 6 questions. And it was very unusual for the city council to throw a project back to the planning commission. Again, all the planning commission does is make a recommendation. The city council can override it, and our city council overrides them quite often. So it was kind of like, why are you sending this back? What's the rationale for this? And nothing. I mean, and what do you think about the project? Nothing. One of the reasons why it was, and this was back channel, and I'm not saying in any way that it's been substantiated, but there seemed to have been some concerns that at the TOD area, there's some of the land that is not currently controlled by the silver companies, which would be needed, and they might not be getting, a lot of support on moving that project forward, and this might be Plan B. So, simple question: is this correct? If not, just say it's not correct. That's fine. But it's been zero, and it's like, and it's same dealing. I'll give staff a little bit more credit. they will respond. But a lot of times it's, when you play the game of, I'm only going to give up as much information as I absolutely necessarily have to. And if your question, if there's a way around providing information based on your question, they'll take it. That's dealing with city staff on occasions.
Yeah, I don't know if they're listening. Do you feel like the elected officials in the Fredericksburg region and across Northern Virginia are doing their best to communicate with you and to be open and respond to your concerns? Have you reached out to a city council member, a board member of the Board of Supervisors, a town council person whom represents you? Have you heard back from them? Tell us what you think. Comment in the comments below and tell us what you think about responsive government here at the local level. I don't know, Matt, if you've been following any of my coverage from Stafford County, because what we've seen in Stafford County is sort of the county government play gatekeeper with elected officials in that county. We've done some reporting about Supervisor Pam Young, who made some claims during the election that she secured some projects, but those claims were disputed by the project developer. And we asked multiple times for an interview. And eventually the county emailed us and said, we'll take all questions for the elected official.
And that's that. Once that happens, you're going down a real bad road. And we're already there. A lot of the public statements and things that are made coming out of City Hall are basically drafted in City Hall and handed out. Said, okay, here are the talking points. Run with the talking points. And that truly is a sad state of affairs that we got to the point. Now, if you listen to council members when this issue comes up, because they don't like to hear this, they go, well, if you watch the meetings and you watch the work sessions, you know what's going on. Well, that's, it's their job to reach out and inform and discuss issues with their constituents. They need to go where their constituents are. Most of us, a lot of us, I'm retired, but a lot of people work and everything else, and they don't have the time to do all that. But no, they feel that they're doing what they need to do. And they say, well, we have public hearings. Public hearings sometimes not enough. Data centers, when you're hearing the information for the first time, how can you respond to it?
Yeah.
You need to have an educational component. The city should have been hosting all these forums that were done by Inform Fredericksburg, Sierra Club, FOR, not us. In fact, we ended up having to rent a city space at cost to put on our forum.
Mm-hmm. And another concerning issue that goes hand in hand with these data center applications are the non-disclosure agreements. When a data center comes up and says, hey, we're interested in potentially building a data center in your jurisdiction, but before we begin any discussion, we need you to sign this NDA form and just promise you will not divulge anything we discuss. So a lot of the discussion, it is rooted. And I like what you said earlier about behind closed doors. Well, a lot of these discussions get started behind closed doors.
Well, it goes beyond that. When we had invited city officials to the forums and were told no until the last one that we held in the city. And the mayor's comment to everybody on a lot of these questions was, we're all good environmentalists. You need to trust us. Not answers, not explanations. You just need to trust us was the answer. That ain't an answer.
Yeah.
Like again, Ronald Reagan said, it's all about is just getting information.
We're from the government. We're here to help. Just trust us. Believe us. We're here to help. Dean Overman in Prince William saying, I wish, commenting here in the chat on Facebook, I wish Prince William County's Board of County Supervisors had the guts to reject the data center invasion we're experiencing in that county. Dean, thank you for the comment. What do you think out there? Are you opposed to more data centers? I don't know, Matt, if you've driven out, especially in Western Prince William County and then through Loudoun County, the landscape out there looks much different than it did just 5 years ago.
Well, if you go in one of our very first posts when we started Inform Fredericksburg, we not only went out there, we did an interview with one of the neighbors in the neighborhood that's nearby and got his take on, yes, it's not a lot of noise, but it's constant and it's annoying and it's messing everybody up. And we recorded it and we posted the recordings and took photographs and everything else. And By the way, we were going near one of the data centers. We're taking some pictures in the parking lot, and we got security out on us and told us to leave.
Interesting. So you were in a parking lot of a data center, and they were none too happy about that.
Yeah, they were not happy with us being there taking pictures. I mean, I can somewhat understand that, but we said, hey, we're just here because we're looking at doing data centers in Fredericksburg, and we just want to get a sense of the size. He says, well, I mean, you can just move along.
Yeah. So let's put a call out. Inform Fredericksburg they need a donation for a drone, so they can put a drone up in the air.
Drones, but the problem is, in your neck of the woods, you're too close to an airport.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
You can't fly. Guess what I brought with me when we went up the first time? But you can't fly it because you're too close to an airport.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. Speaking of that airport, if you're watching us on PLN here on YouTube, go over to our website, potomaclocal.com, where you'll find exclusive coverage of plans to put commercial flights at that airport, at the Manassas Regional Airport. We reported on that story this week on potomaclocal.com. As things are going, you could be able to get on a plane and head potentially to Florida, to Ohio. If things go as planned, commercial passenger airline service could be introduced there as early as 2027 in what already is Virginia's largest municipal airport, currently today served only by private jets and small planes and helicopters. But game-changing stuff could be happening out there, and you can read about that at potomaclocal.com. Well, Matt, looking ahead, this 7-0 vote, what does it mean for the Fredericksburg's broader strategy on data centers, economic development, and ultimately trust with the community?
I think the trust factor has been damaged, and they're going to have to do something to get that back. And that means going out into the community, not just saying, come to the public hearing and watch our meetings and watch us talk, which is basically it. I love Fredericksburg. I have no intention of leaving it. I've spent most of my life trying to make it a better place. But it's important in a community like this that the community be involved. And we can't keep this, I don't have to tell you anything, a mindset that we have. It's a great place. Yes, we talk about a lot of issues where we disagree with the city and how they're doing it. I wouldn't live anyplace else. But we have issues. We have challenges. And let's just be honest with our residents on what those challenges are and what they may be asked to do. And this big one, the one issue I do want to make sure we cover on the data centers, which for us at Inform Fredericksburg is something we spend a lot of time looking at, is we have sat down with people who build and design data centers. And what is clear is in the next 10 years, the technology in data centers is drastically going to change. You're not going to need bigger buildings. Computer chips are going to be able to hold more information. Then you have the business model, which is changing. Businesses want to control their own information. They don't want it being sit in a big, gigantic building. There are now companies that are designing basically, we'll call them boutique data centers, where you can put them on your own building and take care of your own information. That's the kind of the direction this is going. So it's kind of, the question is how long is this going to go on, and how long is, the gravy train, if that's, then that seems to be the big driver for this is revenue, going to continue on. We've seen tech bubbles in the past blow up. Hanover County gave a presentation, and this came out of a presentation on a housing project they were doing. And the county administrator said, we have taken data center money and segregated it to one side. We are only using it for one-time expenditures, capital expenditures. We're not incorporating it into the general fund because we don't know how long this revenue stream is going to last. And we don't want to commit so much to operational, in which case, when it suddenly drops, we're make up the loss. So Fredericksburg is kind of, to some of us, Fredericksburg is jumping into the data center race right when it's about to dramatically change. And, one of the points I made last night is, Prince William County, the tax breaks. Prince William County has clawed back some of those tax breaks. Loudoun County, some of the representatives there, and Fairfax County, we really need to reevaluate handle data centers. We need to go back to special use permits. We need to look at other things. Do we need these tax breaks? Whatever, which they don't, by the way. Yet here we are in Fredericksburg playing the same game under the same rules that were around 5 to 7 years ago. And
yeah, in 2019, Prince William County did lower. I mean, and I think we have to take a step back, as you said, because these jurisdictions have targeted these industries. This data center industry has been they call them in the economic development world targeted industries. Meaning these are types of businesses that we go out to as a jurisdiction, as a locality, to say, hey, you should come think about locating here. And for years, these data centers were going back to 2010, 2012. They were going and courting these companies, and here they are. Today, they're here. And so now there's a lot fewer economic development offices going out and courting these guys because they're already here. So they're that level of effort isn't needed anymore. And I can also report in Prince William County where they lowered the computer and peripheral tax rate which was the data center tax rate, which was the rate on what data centers pay per $100 on every piece of computer equipment in the data center. They increased that to match that of Loudoun County. And so, as you said, these tax breaks are being rescinded, and we are seeing. But yet, that doesn't stop the companies. They're continuing to come here.
Well, they're continuing to come here. The other aspect about it was and I was on council when we passed the current tax rate on data centers. But I pride myself on being a person who can, one, learn over time and seeing the experiences what other jurisdictions have gone over. Incentives were always intended to be that last little amount of money to put on the table to get the project over the fence and being constructed. We need the money because you've got too high of regulatory fees. Your taxes are too high compared to here. And you would make those kind of concessions and to make sure the project was economically viable for them. It met their needs. I asked the STAC representative at one point about, do you really need these incentives from localities to make the project economically viable? And his answer was, hey, all the localities are offering tax breaks. If you don't offer one, you won't get one.
Yeah.
They don't need them.
Right.
And what makes it even worse, in a sense, is, we are getting saddled with the need to cover the electrical infrastructure costs, which are going to go up and up and up and up. It would make more sense to let them pay the taxes necessary to pay for those improvements instead of taking it because, frankly, they're taking it because we as localities are offering it. And like you said, Loudoun and Prince William County are beginning to say, you know what? No.
Yeah.
We need the money for us, not for you.
And the other question that I get asked all the time as a journalist is, Uriah, we were promised by the Board of Supervisors or the City Council or what have you, when we approve these data centers in Prince William County or Manassas or what have you, whatever jurisdiction they're in, that they were going to flood the county coffers, the jurisdiction's coffers with additional tax money, and that would work to offset or lower my tax bill. My tax bill hasn't gone down in years. And I get a bill each year, and each year the bill is higher than it was the previous year. And we're talking about that real estate tax bill, what localities in Virginia rely on to fund local government. And these, unless you're in Fairfax County, jurisdictions are reliant on the homeowners, the property owners, to foot the lion's share of the bill for the operation of county government and schools.
Well, I have been involved in numerous incentives projects with regards to Capitol Ale, a little bit with the baseball stadium, and Wegmans was another one. But, it was all premised on the specifics of that particular project, what they needed to make it work. And the other key factor was they were only for a number of years, and then they would go away. The questions we keep asking is, how long are you going to keep doing this? Why isn't there a limit on it? Because they will make the argument, well, look, we're building a 4-lane highway for you. Yeah, but you're using our tax dollars that you got kept to build it. And at some point you've paid it off and you're still getting the tax break, and we're stuck with a lot less revenue than we could have to do other things with.
Been very, very informative. I before I let you go, I do want to remind those who are listening to like and subscribe. Please, we are on our way to 1,000 YouTube subscribers. We want you to be our next YouTube subscriber. If you like these types of conversations you're hearing right now, if you want more of them, please like this video and subscribe to our YouTube page and drop us a line and tell us what you want to hear more about. We're happy to sit here and have these types of discussions about how we got to these certain issues, how the city of Fredericksburg developed the way it has, how Prince William County has come along into the data center capital it is now, where just 5 years ago it wasn't. We're happy to have these conversations as long as we know that you want to hear them. So please tell us what you want to hear about, like and subscribe, and help us keep the local news coming, the local conversation, because that's how we understand what's happening on a local level. Is we talk about it and we put out questions to people who have answers, and we throw a line out and see what we get back. Matt, as we wrap up here, we mentioned earlier that this now goes to the city council. The way this works is the planning commission weighs in, it gives its recommendation. It's a non-binding recommendation, although when a project of this size gets up, it carries weight. When do we think this might go before the city council for a final up or down vote?
I would guess it's going to come pretty quick. I would not be surprised if it occurs before the end of the year or by the beginning of the year, probably with the current council. Now, remember one other thing, just to give you a kind of a little bit of history that you should know, is that if you remember correctly, with the TOD, the Planning Commission recommended slowing down and not taking action. And of course, the city council rode right over that one. That's, again, another reason why nobody understood why they sent it back to the Planning Commission. They drove over them with the TOD. They can easily drive over them on this one too, but we'll see.
Yeah.
The indications are is it will not pass at the council level.
Okay.
There's been enough back channel that says that there's enough, at least 4 votes that vote against it. But again, nobody will say anything publicly.
Okay. Well, we'll record that. The indications it will not pass. We're going to go up to the Rose and Dumfries and take your bets on that one. We'll see what happens there. But in all seriousness, Matt, thank you for coming on and talking with us about this today. How can people find out more about Inform Fredericksburg and follow you and what you're doing to the good work you're doing to inform residents?
Right now, we are strictly, because this is where we started. It was easy for us being all older people. On Facebook, but we're now discussing, and hopefully in the next month or so, we're gonna jump over to Substack, because a lot of people don't follow social media, and Substack, that way you'd be able to subscribe. And by the way, we'd never charge. For as far as we do this because we think it's important to provide the public the information they need to make decisions. So hopefully we will be announcing on Facebook, and it's just Inform Fredericksburg on Facebook, that we will also shift over to Substack.
Well, you heard it here first. Breaking news on PLN. Inform Fredericksburg is going to Substack, which is a great place to disseminate local news and information. Matt, thank you so much for coming on today, and thank you all for joining us here. If you want more local news from where you live, go to our website, potomaclocal.com, and sign up for our free email newsletter. We send that out every day, packed with local news headlines you just won't find anywhere else. Get it free at potomaclocal.com. And of course, if you're watching this video on YouTube, please be sure you subscribe and help us reach 1,000 YouTube subscribers. We want you to be our next YouTube subscriber. Thank you so much for your time today. We hope you have a great afternoon. We'll talk to you next time.